This is the Real Estate Power Play Podcast, getting you the information that you need to be a successful real estate investor. Hosted by Mark Monroe, Ronnie Walker, Gabe Rodarte, and me, Marty Grizzanti. Combined, we've done thousands of real estate transactions. So get ready for real stories and true case studies on finding deals, growing portfolios, and making money. Welcome to the show.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Real Estate Power Play.
What's up?
Yo.
Yeah. I'm your host today. We have several people here on the Power team with us today. We got Gabe Rodarte.
What's up?
We got Marty, the real estate man, the champion over here himself.
Good to be here. Good to be here, boys.
Yeah, man. Today we're going to be talking about tracking your numbers. We're going to be talking about tracking the actions that need to be done, what needs to be happening, how to get clear on what's going on. And man, I'm excited to jump in and get started. So, guys, let's kick us off, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
No,
I hope everyone had a good weekend.
I'm really excited about this one because I think this is the big difference maker between someone who is kind of like, I'm a hobbyist, wholesaler, real estate investor, right? And someone who starts to really turn it into a business. I know that it does take a little bit of time to kind of go from that, hey, I just want to get my first deal, right? And then how do I start getting, a deal consistently, right? And then going into, all right, I'm going to start tracking numbers to figure out what I'm spending, what the expense, so this is not for a beginner. I mean, you should know this stuff, I think. Yeah. This is really like, I guess I should say I learned this too late in my career, and I wish I learned it sooner. So there's a lot more smarter people than me that are watching this right now. So really pay attention, because this stuff is really how you can go from just those regular people who post on Facebook groups saying, hey, I do one or two, no, to going like, I'm a Gabe, I'm a Ronnie. So I'm excited, guys. Real excited.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. I want to chirp on that, Ronnie. I'm super pumped. For those who don't know, Ronnie is a master at knowing the numbers. All right. And so we have habitually returned back to Ronnie multiple times saying, hey, look, let's talk about some KPIs. Let's talk about some numbers. Let's talk about tracking. He has probably gone into all of our CRMs individually some point, or looked at them, or looked at the screen and said, hey, listen, we might need to tweak a couple things. So we're going to hammer Ronnie today, right?
Yeah, we're going to hammer. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, guys, here's the thing. Ronnie's very humble in his in this whole thing. This guy's $1 million producer. This guy seen a ton of deals. And the reason is because he has his tracking and his KPIs and all the things that, if you're just hearing what KPIs tracking, like, this is the guy. This is the guy that got us, my company, to the next level. I can say the same thing for Gabe.
Yeah,
Gabe.
Sure.
Again, I'm really excited, and I thought I would start, Ronnie, if you're okay with that, Gabe, by asking a couple of questions, because I think what people need to get their heads wrapped around is, what's the point of keeping? It's like, hey, Ronnie, I mean, I'm getting deals, like I'm making money. Like, listen, that sounds boring. I don't want to do it. I mean, what truly is the point of keeping track of the numbers?
Marty, that's a great question. I mean, really what it comes down to, when you can isolate the most important numbers in our businesses, right? It tells you, these are the behaviors, these are the things that I need to do, or my company needs to do, that are the most important actions, right? And it tells us where to focus, right? If you're able to isolate the KPIs in your business, it says, okay, these are the things I care about. These are the things I need to make sure get done. And if they get done, you're able to keep score on how well that's happening, right? You're able to say, hey, this is my goal. These are the things that need to be done to hit that goal. And then it allows you to really look at from whatever the interval of time that you keep track of, right? So I follow the traction model, the EOS traction model. So we do a weekly right now. Cool. But it allows you to, on any reoccurring increment, create consistency and to flush out inconsistencies within a business, right? Or what to do when things are inconsistent and how to make sure you're hitting your goals, right? Because a lot of times when we don't have these numbers, like we don't have these numbers, or we're not looking at the numbers, you might be like, man, I had a freaking great week, right? And you look back and you're like, yo, I only did half of what I did the week before. And the week before, I felt like I had a freaking terrible week. And so our emotions often mislead us on how well or how not well we're doing. And let's say I had a lot of activity, right? Let's say I talked to 100 people this week. But what if I talk to 100 of the wrong people?
That's
right?
good.
Because you don't know what specifically you're supposed to talk to, right? Like Gabe, if you know you're supposed to talk to this guy or this is your avatar, but really you're out here talking, like let's say you're trying to do commercial, but you're out here talking to mobile homeowners, like you're not talking to the right dude,
Right.
And
Good.
so that's why it's important for us to isolate key indicators in our business, or even outside, even individually. What are the key things I'm trying to accomplish, and what's the behavior I have to demonstrate in order to make sure that I'm successful, right? That's why it's so important.
That gave me some goosebumps, Gabe. You know what I'm talking about right there? You know what I'm talking about?
Goosebumps.
So let me just go back for a second, because I think what you said is an aha moment for me and a lot of people, where it's, you feel like you're busy doesn't mean you're being successful, right? So just talking to people doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be talking to the right people or that it's going to be making you money down the road. Now, that is such an aha thing for someone to go, but I'm doing this, Ronnie. I'm talking to people. I got the calls made and I have the meetings set, but it's the tracking. It's doing it the right way. I love that, man. I think that's awesome. That's awesome. It's needed. It needs to be said. It needs to be heard.
It's good.
I absolutely 100% agree. Because I think a lot of us we get in and we're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing all this, but you don't really know why. You just hear it, right? You just hear people talk about it and kind of pull it out. And I'd like to know from your guys' standpoint, as you guys have begun to get more clear, like give people, like Gabe, I'd like to hear your story, right? From a story standpoint, like from your experience, you going from jumping in this a number of years ago to kind of plugging away and then being able to really get clear on, and I'll let you kind of unpack, what you call it as far as your key role or the thing that makes you money. What happened when you got clear on what you needed to be doing? What'd that look like, man?
So in story format, basically I was really clear in my thoughts and what I had to do daily. What's interesting is I had more time in the day, which was really weird. It was a weird transition because I was like, man, I have more time today than I normally have. And it's because I wasn't doing things that did not move the needle. And I had to sort that out. And it was really awkward for me because I was so used to just produce, just try to get on the phone calls, just try to make something happen, go drive here, go look at this, go do all these things. And then once I started narrowing down a little bit, that was very helpful. And the things that, and you helped me out with this a little bit, but Ronnie, is the things I was tracking didn't necessarily help me. I started changing what I was tracking. Right. So the stuff that helped me in the beginning started transitioning to like, okay, well, you don't really need to track that anymore because you now know, because sometimes tracking, and this is what I got, was tracking to help me understand where I was, right, or where I am today to make better decisions. And then I go, you know what, I'm actually tracking the wrong thing, or I'm actually doing something I don't like doing, or I'm horrible at or something. And I'm like, well, let me just shift. So those are some of the things that helped me intrinsically, internally, and it's totally changed our business. So, yeah.
I love that. That's so good. Well, and Marty, I want to hear from your standpoint, man. You've exploded. I know you're, in the grind. You've added, right, doing the tour of the houses you're flipping. You've got project management. You've got lead generation, right? You're like, at what point did you sit down and be like, you know what, this is what I got to focus on? And when you did that, Like, what happened as a result of that?
Yeah, it really came down to when Matt and I, my partner, said, hey, we're not good at these things, right? We're not good at our expenses. We're not good at figuring out the profit and losses. We're not good at QuickBooks, right? So what we said is, all right, let's stop trying to be better at what we're bad at, and let's like triple down on what we're good at, right? And that was a huge, like, bringing in team members that were our bookkeepers, our profit, that can get our profit and loss together, that can manage our rentals, that can manage our tenants, right? Those are huge responsibilities that we had where we couldn't go, hey, what's actually making us money, which is our next deal, right? So I think coming to terms with those things, and it's so much easier said than done when you look back, when you go, well, that's something I've just always done, right? I think there's also a huge thing where people like to keep a badge on their chest saying, well, we do it all. Well, that's, and honestly,
well, that's stupid.
Yeah. And honestly, that's from Who Not How. That book, I gotta tell anybody who's listening to read Who Not How. That kind of put a light bulb switch for us, because we're like, we prided ourselves on doing it all, but then we looked like, dude, that's not the way to do things. That's not how you're going to run a business. That's how you're going to have a job, right? That's going to be your cash flow quadrant step 1 or step 2, right? Not even, because it feels like we don't even own it sometimes. So anyways, that was huge. It's just bringing in people that, whether it's a co-founder or whether it's an employee, that's going to be able to take the stuff that you don't want off your plate, and then so you can focus and double down on what you're good at. Well, and I think one of the things that we weren't good at, Ronnie, was our KPIs. And that's something that you brought into us when we met with you the first time.
Well, and I think that idea of, okay, this stuff needs to be done.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be done by me.
Right.
Right. And then it's like, okay, it's not always what to do. Like, I don't necessarily need to know what to do. I need someone who's the who that's going to figure out what to do. And then I need to hold them accountable to some type of number or to some type of project. Right. And that piece, I think is key, right? That who, and what that looks like. And so I guess, Gabe, I'm going to ask you, how do you hold your team accountable?
Hey,
Once you do that, bro, how do you do that? That
is not fair. I'm supposed to be asking you the question, bro, of what we're doing with this stuff. That is not fair. So you know what? That is actually one of the questions I have down, is to ask Ronnie. Like, I have down right here on my screen, ask Ronnie. Because Ronnie, look, man, I look up to you and how you do these numbers. And dude, I want to get into, and those who are watching this can really say, by the time this is done, tomorrow morning, even today, they can go, I know what to track today. Like, I know 5 things I could be tracking, and I know how to implement this stuff. That's really what we hope for, right? To help other people and to just kind of give back. So I know you asked me, but I'll be honest with you. I'm asking you, okay?
Okay.
Because and we have a lot of questions for you, bro. Like, this is a lot to get out of, right, Mark?
This is the total hot seat.
Yeah. Okay. We should be doing. Forget that.
Seat.
We need a hot seat, you, bro.
This is your show. You're taking the hot seat today.
Yeah. Okay, Marty. So why don't you turn it up a little bit, Marty? Turn it up for him. What is something, Marty, that you're like, look, Ronnie, this is what we need to know.
Well, I think one of our biggest things, and I think I can talk for a lot of people watching, is, mistakes that, like a common mistake, Ronnie, that you see people who are starting out make with their KPIs. That's always been something I was curious about, because I might be still making these, so I want to know.
Yeah. So common mistakes with what were you going to say, Gabe? Go ahead.
No, I'm with them. Totally.
Okay. So common mistakes. I think what we find when we jump in is we way overcomplicate this crap, right? We think, man, them, and we're trying to piecemeal everything, and we write out a whole bunch of stuff on a piece of paper, and it's like, I don't know if those are the right things. I don't know if that's not. Oh, I need to track that, and I need to track that, and I need to track that. Oh, they mentioned this. So we way overcomplicate the KPIs. Right? Like when we think about it, it's just, what are the actions that I need to do to hit my result, right? And I want to go into some of those things we should track in our business. But first, we overcomplicate them. And then the second thing that I think is a massive, huge mistake is we try to systemize KPIs immediately, right? We might take an education course, or we might listen to another guy and we might pull his KPI sheet, and it's all these numbers, right? And we're like, holy crap, that's integrating here and that's here. And how do I make this run for my business? When initially, whether you're starting out or whether you're implementing KPIs initially, let me put it needs to be simple in its metrics initially, and it needs to gradually expand, right? Because the core numbers at the top level should tell you how you're doing and if you're on track. And then when it breaks down, when you unpack numbers, that is to show you where things are failing, where things are breaking apart, right? Like if it's, hey, I'm going to track the number of contracts I get per week. Okay, well, that's a result. What are the behaviors? The behaviors are breaking down why you're not hitting those numbers, right? Why you're not getting to, well, what is my actual action? Well, okay, that breaks it down. Well, then you could say, okay, well, how many people am I connecting with, right? And it helps you uncover the issue, but you don't need all of those data points initially, right? And we overcomplicate it. You can break that down over time. The second thing, or the third thing rather, that I think we run into is once we set KPIs, and especially if we have a team, we do not hold them accountable, which kind of went to my question to you, right? We are afraid. I mean, how can I be more specific? We are afraid of the tension that causes when it's like, hey, bro, you're supposed to bring in 2 contracts last week. You didn't do it. What happened? And then it's, well, I was busy and I've been working on developing the system. And it's like, okay, well, how many calls did you make? Maybe 30 to 40. No, how many calls did you make? Like exactly.
Right.
You made, average 17 calls a day. You're supposed to be at 80. Like, bro, like, do you have something going on in your personal life, or like what's happening? Like, I expect 80 to be made for us to hit these numbers. Can I expect you to do that? Or what's going on? Like, and then where a lot of people miss is when you're doing that, take it upon you as the leader to say, hey, how can I help you? Right? Like, I expect this of you. What do you expect of me? And then if you can ask them what, and then you as the leader can deliver, dude, there's no, if you deliver to your team to give them everything they say they require of you, you can do that. But the biggest mistake is, I would say, those 3 things. We overcomplicate, we try to systemize with a system too early and not doing things manually, and we don't hold our team accountable when we dish it out. Those are the biggest mistakes.
Guys, this is insane
Really,
because it's so good to hear that and know, hey, a lot of people listening are starting out. So like, you just saved yourself, if you're listening, a lot of problems. And if you just take that and you execute on holding your teammates accountable, right? Because we're all a team when you have employees. It's a team sport, but you have to hold everyone accountable because it's going to make them better and it's going to make you better as a leader. That's awesome, Ronnie. Totally love that.
Well, and when you're jumping in, and Gabe, I'd love for you to chime in this, but we have to ask ourselves, when we're running this business and the goals that we're trying to hit, like, what do we want to do in this business? What goals do we want? Do we want to be a millionaire? Do we want to flip this many properties? Do we want to make this? And how demanding is that? How much tension are we going to run into? And are we willing to meet that demand? Are we willing to deal with the stress or the tension of, yo, I got to do that even though I don't want to. Yo, I got to make sure 80 calls are happening in my business. Yo, if that person I hire, I've got to be willing to be like, hey, man, what's going on? Like, let me help you. I expect this, but like, are you having a hard time? Is your grandma having a hard time? Is your mom? Are you in a relationship problem? Like, all that stuff comes out because that's what people are dealing with. And then we need to be able to just push them. So, I mean, like, Gabe, I want you to speak to how do you deal with, it's this demanding? Like, it's hard.
Yeah. So we have a phrase that we make hard things easy. It's just one of our phrases. Okay. And so anytime I hear that there's a challenge, is look, guys, we make hard things easy, right? Right. Okay. So what is right now that seems like a little bit of resistance that's going on here, or seems like it's tugging against our goal? Well, we got this. Okay. So how do we make these things easy? Do we get rid of them? Do we tweak them? Do we adjust them? Because the goal's really the most primary thing. The tasks closest to the money are the most primary. Today, we found out our main caller is he had some surgical things that happened over the weekend with his digestion type stuff, right? Just normal stuff that we all go through as human beings. And he was like, yeah, he goes, man, I'm still in pain. I'm like, listen, if you can't smile while you're on the phone, I have like 3 other tasks that we talked about last week. We already set the whole month up. I was like, you still have those other 3 major projects. Do you want to pivot right now or what? And he's like, no, man, I'm all smiles. I was like, are you sure? Because we have goals. So I would have given him a break to not make those calls today. And then it would have hurt, right, to the bottom line. But he's working on some very key projects also. And so I'm like, I would, where we don't have to make that call, those set of calls today. But if you're going to put a smile on your face, then we got to make them.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of like, hey, look, if you're going to commit, let's commit, right? If we're going to do this, then let's really do it. And so that's just kind of how we go about doing it. It might not be the best way. I mean, I'm still learning how to do all this stuff too, and how to keep the team going. But every now and then you throw out there, hey, our bonuses are looking really good this month. And then, everyone's like, oh, they looking pretty good. Okay, cool. And so there's other incentives there, but I mean, I could be way off. Right.
No, I think that's awesome, because there's a part of being a human managing a team, right? Like so much of success is not just transactional or systematic. It's motivation. It's meeting your needs. It's giving you fulfillment in life. It's, purposeful work, right? Like all this stuff with teams comes out. And I think that's where a lot of us get botched, is like, we got to hit these numbers while we're dealing this. Well, how do we balance that? Marty, any insight on that?
Yeah, it's tough, because management, just thinking of it like, people want to get into management, right? There's a lot of people who want to be managers. It's like, dude, management's overrated. It's hard, right? Because the thing is, when what you're looking for is, you want someone who can kind of do it all on their own, right? But those are like rock stars, right? Those are like what I consider. Ronnie was probably, when he was an employee, someone who no one really needed to talk to, right? Like he was just going to go and do his thing, like my partner, or like Gabe, right? So it's really an emotional time suck to pour into your team. Is it worth it? Yeah, I believe it is. But I think people have it kind of twisted when they're like, I'm just going to have my team and my team's going to do it all. It's not like that. Like, I think people hire VAs way too early in their careers. I think that's a huge mistake that can be made. So I just thought I'd throw it out there that you guys, management is overrated, but it's super underrated too. So it's like, it goes both ways. It's how you play it, and it's the right timing to hire. It's all those things. So it's tough. It's super tough.
So I got some questions. Can we go into like what we need to do? Marty, you ready for this?
Yeah.
Like we need some practical stuff. All right, bro. Like hit us hard. Okay.
The meat.
We need some meat. Now we know the why. Like, guys, get your stuff together. That's the why. All right. All right. So what's the meat? So the meat to me, all right, is, you said most people track the wrong things in the beginning. And Marty, I don't know if you're the same way, but when he said over systematize and everything, I was thinking these massive KPI systems and Podios totally built out. And I'm like, whoa, what are we really tracking here? And I really just went dark on some of the stuff in the very beginning. And I was like, I know exactly how much every letter costs. I just had to track something. The money that went out was this much. The deals that came in was this, and this is how many phone calls and this and other stuff. So I got it. but I didn't really know how to take it to the next level. So, Marty, what should we be tracking? What is like, hey, what are the top 3, 4, 5 things that you're like, this is how you need to go about doing it? And I believe you started off with like the activities. Is that what it is? Like you want to
Yeah.
track the activities, not just the results, because all of us focus on results. Like,
Right.
wow, we made 30 grand and we did this deal and we put it on Facebook. But what's happening behind the scenes?
Mm. Mm.
That's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, for us, I think it's number one. What's the profit that we're, potential profit in these contracted properties, right? I think that's always our biggest number that we're always looking at. I mean, the profits from the deals that have already sold that we're waiting on closing, the profits that we made, last week, last month, and then kind of going back and looking at those. I mean, I'd be curious to you, Ronnie, what's your biggest KPI? Because we're sales guys. Matt and I, we're just number one thing is how many dials, how many set appointments, how many contracts, and how much money, right? That's what we look at. That's our number one. But that's why I wanted to be on this call so badly, is because I know we have work to do. I know there's other things that could 10x these are what we track. So, Ronnie, again, you're in the hot seat. Take the floor, please.
Yeah. So I think what you talked about is really good, right? You want to know what your profit's going to be. But think of it in terms of our business, right? So we have to get leads. Like we need to be able to talk to our customers. We need a conversion aspect. We need to be able to convert those customers. And then we need to be able to get rid of those properties, right? There's a book that I'm going to recommend for everybody to do. It's called Predictable Revenue. It's so good. It's by, I think I got it right here. It's by Aaron Ross. This is the book right here. Totally recommend it. But in our business, what you want to start off with is, okay, how many leads are coming in, right? How many leads are in front of me? How do you generate those leads is up to you guys, right? Like, I'm not going to get into how to generate leads today, but whatever that generation looks like, you need to track how many leads did I get this week? Like, how many came in? Is that 50? Do you have to generate 50 leads? Well, guess what? You don't stop generating until 50 leads are generated. It doesn't matter whose job that is, yours or someone else's. 50 leads get generated, are they or are they not? Yes or no, right? That's number one. And I think that is so critical. Number two, once they come in, how many calls did the acquisition coordinator make, or the person that's driving or trying to work the leads, right? How many calls did you make? And then the second thing is, how many conversations with people did you have? And a conversation is over 2 minutes in our business. How many conversations did you have where you talked to someone for over 2 minutes? And look at it, because I guarantee even new guys in the business, right? New people jumping in, man, I talked to so many people this week. And then they look back and it's like, man, I only talked to 6 people yesterday, right? 6 people can seem like a lot if you have 6 20-minute conversations. But what if you're talking to contractor ratio? What if it's 45? Right? What if it's 60? Right? And that's all going to be determined based on people's skill. But if you feel like you had 6 conversations, you had 20 conversations, you had 6, well, you're going to be way off. Right? And so being able to track that and say, I'm going to do a minimum of 10 conversations per day, or whatever the goal is to hit you to your number, and making sure you hit that. You want to look at that for the conversations, not just the dials. Because what if you dialed 10 times, but only one person answered, right? So leads, acquisition calls made, acquisition conversations, the number of new contracts that you're looking at. You want to keep track of how many you're bringing in. If you're new, you're going to be excited as soon as you get one. But as soon as you get one, don't stop the other things, right? Because they're the lag measures. It takes these things to hit this. A lot of times we'll get a contract and all of this dies. And then you'll be able to see, oh, that's going to take me a while to get. And then from there, what I track on top of that, I track the current properties I have under contract, the number of properties owned, the dollar amount spent on marketing, the money spent on expenses, and then our total net profit running from the year up to this point. Week after week, I'm constantly looking at that.
Oh,
And
so
guys,
good.
that's
good.
it. Like
Wow.
that tells you if you're winning or not.
So
Right.
good.
Right. And a lot of people are like, well, I could break it down. I could do it. Yes, break it down. I'm in the process of breaking down my leads, right? Okay. I have different rates on direct mail versus cold call, right? Versus text message. So each one you can break down, but initially don't break them down. Just focus on the main thing. And then over time, be like, you know what? I need to separate that out. You know what? I need to separate that out. Okay, I need to separate that out.
I got a
just
question
gradually
for
do
you.
it.
I got a question for you.
So good.
While doing this, how many times of the course of your investor career, because I know you're great at the marketing aspect of it, right? And for those who don't know, Ronnie's really good at it. How many times have you gone through, looked at your KPIs, and then go, wow, our avatar has changed, or wow, the ROI is really good over here, or wow, maybe we need to tweak our marketing a little bit towards getting a little more of these type of deals? I mean, did that happen to you throughout? Because I mean, markets change. You go, okay, I think this market's kind of drying up, right? Or maybe this isn't working anymore. So can you share a little bit about that as you're going
Yeah.
through these leads and this other stuff? What is some hardcore Ronnie wisdom here?
Yeah. So from that standpoint, I have pivoted in the properties that I had probably 7 or 8 times over 8 years. Okay. And what you're looking for, the way this is not in KPIs. You don't find this out through KPIs. You find this out through a quarterly or whenever you do what's called like a SWOT analysis, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats to your business, which you should be going through every quarter. So you say, hey, where are we strong? Where are we weak? What are the opportunities? And what are the threats to my business? And as you're looking at that, that's where you kind of determine it. From there, that's when you do a review and say, okay, all the properties that I did bring in and I made money, where'd they come from? And in that analysis of where they came from, that's when you can determine your pivot or new information. And new information might be, I'm talking to Marty, and Marty on the call after I help him says, hey, Ronnie, I just wanted to let you know you've helped me out a lot. You need to look at this. And you're like, what do you mean? And you're like, no, bro, like, take a look at this, check this out, blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, okay, you take in that information, you say, yo, let me test that with 10 to 20% of my budget. And then you test and you're like, yo, that's pretty awesome. And then you start adjusting resources that direction. And that's where you're not necessarily changing the lead measure, but you're changing what's behind the lead, right? You're changing what the action is behind it. To do that, that might not be your KPI that you're watching, but it is the action or the action orientation of that KPI, right? The orientation of the activity that you're doing.
The moment you said that, I go, this is what keeps people in business, right, Marty? Like, this isn't like, hey, this is a good new shiny object. Let me allocate 80% of my budget towards this new shiny object, and let's jump after this thing, and I'll keep the 20% over here and the thing that's consistent. It's doing the exact opposite. It's saying, this is what's consistent. Let's keep the 80%. Let's move 20% over. I love it. And let's test some of the other stuff and start getting, it's like A/B testing in a little bit, in a sense, right? I don't know, Marty, did you get, I mean, that was like, I love that. That's what keeps people in business.
Oh, it's crazy because I think a lot of new people, and I was guilty of this, and you can see the new shining marketing, thing to do, right? So like, hey, let's go hard on RVM, and then RVM gets a little weird, and now we're only doing SEO, and then SEO is costing too much money with Google ads. So now I'm going to just cold call, but I don't really know what I'm doing, right? So I think people like to jump. And I mean, I didn't really hear about A/B testing until Ronnie talked about it,
right?
So, and maybe you want to dig into a little bit about what A/B testing is, Ronnie.
Yeah, A/B testing. I'm not the best at explaining or doing that, so I'm going to side skirt that.
Okay.
Research it, right? Research how to A/B test, because it's very hard in our business, actually.
Yeah.
Like straight up, it's very hard. What's easier is A/B testing the same thing, like direct mail channels through different postcards, is very difficult for me. A lot of people talk about, I could talk about the theory, but to actually pull it off is very difficult. What's easier is judging the money you spend towards direct mail and the postcards versus, say, like a cold calling, right? That's easier to split test. It's easier to say, you know what, I'm going to do cold calling and direct mail. I'm going to split my budget between it. I'm going to see what produces better and say, okay, well, I actually make more money here, so I'm going to focus here. Or I can get more leads here and I can scale this faster, so I'm going to focus here. That's easier to do.
Yeah, I think that is really what yeah, because I mean, we could go crazy, right? You know, if you want to go nuts and you want to talk to like, people that literally do that for a living, that will go into your business and then start A/B testing your business. Guys, if you're just trying to, 6 figures a year, you can have $1 million business and not be A/B testing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's not, you're right. Let's not get hung up on that. Gabe, what do you got for Ronnie? Because I know you got, I know you got.
Yeah. Okay. So, as far as the KPIs go, let's go back to some of the tracking things. Okay.
Yes.
How are you tracking these things? Like, what is the how part of it? All right, we know what we need to be doing. You're like, these are the highlights.
Yep.
Right. And we could, by the way, y'all who's listening, we could camp out on the whole premise of like, this is why you don't do shiny object syndrome stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Because all of us fall into it. We all see it. And I know, because I've talked with Ronnie about it, of going, hey, anytime someone brings a new idea, Ronnie and I were talking about just bouncing ideas off each other. I'm like, how much time, energy, and money would this take from what we already worked our tail off to create?
That's right.
Right. Because I like what I'm doing. Do I really want to transfer money over it? Is it gonna, so you got to fill that stuff out before you're just jumping in. And I think, Ronnie, if I'm not mistaken, most people who do the shiny object are in a position where they don't have a full pipeline, where they're going, if I choose this other shiny object, that means I got to leave the pipeline I just created. Right. Am I mistaken on some of that?
Yeah, I think so. So I think there is an aspect of shiny object syndrome that you want to test out. But I think all of us, we always think the grass is greener elsewhere, right? Like we think that, oh man, that you could make money. Oh man, you could make money. Oh man, my best friend over here, he's making money doing blank. And we don't get clear on what we want to do, right? And I think having that clarity and being okay with, what, that's really good, but it's not where I'm going right now. Right. And I think being willing to do that, or, what, that's really good and it does fit in and it fits in this way. I think it's when it's unmanageable or it gets you off track, right? Because if you're setting your goals appropriately, like, I want to do this and I'm going this direction, I'm going to leave myself 20% opportunity to learn and kind of add, but really I got to make sure this happens. You want to be consistent in something, right? And then as you're trying, what happened, I think, I can't remember what business it was as I'm thinking, but they realized that, I think it was actually Elon Musk and PayPal, right? Elon Musk was like building this whole thing out. And it was like 80% of the revenue came from like this small thing that was PayPal. And it was the easiest thing they were doing. And he literally cut out 80% of his business, but he didn't do that initially, right? He just had this thing that was just a small portion of his business that he added in. And then he started making a bunch of money and then he cut out the rest of it and pivoted once it was proven. And I think that's where we go, is we think because our friend over here says that commercial is where you make millions of dollars. So you know what? I'm just going to throw out everything I've been doing and go do commercial, right? Think of even people who learn real estate, right? Real estate's how you make millions of dollars. I'm going to throw my job out the window and go in full time. And then they have no money. It's like, yo, man, keep doing what you're doing. And do this on the side, get better at it, and then make the jump once it makes sense. I think there's an element of common sense there. So
that's good. That's good. Okay. So where are the hows? So now we know what we need to be doing, why we need to be doing it. What is the hows? I mean, is this in a spreadsheet? Is this in Excel, Podio? Where are we putting this stuff? Because that's the stuff for me. I don't know about Marty, but The thing for me is, okay, but where are we putting? I actually have an assistant that's like, Gabe, calm down. Just give me the freaking numbers.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm like, yeah, but you got to put it in this and you got to do this other stuff. And she's like, just give me the numbers. I'll take care of it. Okay.
Good.
So Ronnie, what is the how? How are we doing this?
So for me now, all my stuff I have automatically basically watched in Podio. Okay. So everything's in Podio. However, we transfer every single week, we transfer that to a Google spreadsheet that's just the numbers of watching. Now, in the future, the idea is to have it automatic, right? But initially, just do it manual. Literally do a Google Forms and whatever those things are. Hey, I got 2 leads today. Boom, I put it in. Boom, I put it in, and just watch them grow. But I like to do it on a weekly basis, right? Where I'm taking the numbers and I'm looking at them on a Google Sheet, literally a list of all my stuff weekly. So that way, because when you're doing a meeting or you're doing a meeting with yourself, what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to say, okay, what was my goal for the week broken down? Did I hit it? And you want to be able to go down the line. And I did this morning. We normally do Monday mornings. We did Tuesday because of Labor Day. When I'm reviewing the scorecard, it's, okay, potential revenue, blank. Are we on track? No, we need to talk about that. Okay, pipeline revenue, blank. Closings last week, blank. Leads, blank. Oh, we didn't hit our leads? Boom, that's an issue. We need to talk about that. Number of conversations, blank. Dude, great job this week. We over our number of conversations. Boom. Number of contracts. We got 3. Good job. Our goal is 2 per week. We got 3 last week, which we actually did. We got 3 last week. Great freaking job, team. You guys did awesome. Any wins you want to share? No. No. And what you're doing is you're not allowing people to interject with stories. It's just number. Is there an issue? Okay, we want to talk about that later. Number, issue, talk about that. And what you're doing is you're using it to extract issues, and you just go down the line. But a Podio system is good because everything is tracked without the person doing it, entering it, right? Because that initially you're probably going to have to do that is you're going to have to enter the data, right? But if you can do it where that doesn't have to happen, well, now it becomes more honest, right? Someone can't say, I made 20 phone calls today instead of 11, right? But I like to do it in a spreadsheet that's separate. And then I like to extract from that as I'm going down the list of, hey guys, right now is not the time for stories. Right now it's just to go through the numbers. Boom, 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 extract. Okay, cool. Okay, we go to the next one. Boom, 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 boom. And then on top of that, one of the things I had a really hard time with was essentially that is allowing the numbers to speak for themselves, because a lot of times if the numbers don't measure up, you have to dig into why. And a lot of times the why is a people issue. And I don't know how else to say that. A lot of times the why is not how we ran into this result or this happened. A lot of times it's just people don't do the work, right? And so a lot of times, and that becomes really tense. But you don't allow stories. You pull out and then you talk about it and you jump into it. So that's kind of from a practical, how do I keep track of it?
Good.
That's literally like top level, like CEO stuff. Like that is because the amount of time you save and the amount of just BS that is just X'd because of the, hey, we're all under the guise of, hey, we're all under the, hey guys, we're all going down these numbers. That's what we're talking about. And the numbers, when you're getting called out, it's easier when you have the number right next to it, right? Because you don't even need to call that person out because the number is calling you out, right? So it's beautiful way of doing it. Where what happens when you do that, Ronnie and Gabe? You know what happens when you do that? Actually, people start firing themselves, which is kind of what you want. You don't want to have to be the one that fires someone. You want them to go, hey, this isn't for me. Right. I can't compete. I can't keep up with it. And it's not something and that's great because you're getting that person out. And that's where you really know, all right, the culture's there, that what we're doing is the right thing, because these people that maybe they're nice people, but they're not for this job. And keeping them there was hurting the business. It's hurting them. It's hurting my bottom line. So they're able to get out without even without any real pain. So that's great.
I love that. Gabe, any additional thoughts on top of that?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, kind of to go with that is, what kind of trainings are you doing? Is it something where you look at, I mean, as the owner, right? Not as like in the middle of the management side of it, but as an owner. So let's pop back up to 30,000 feet, right? When you look at this and you go, okay, here's a KPI issue. It's not a huge issue. Everything's fixable, right? Everything's workable. But I know that once I work it, I know the system works. I know this works. And if you're brand new, you got to have that faith of going, look, this stuff really does work, right? Yep. But how do you go back into it and go, okay, now I need to train, right? Because it's not always about phone calls. It's not always about just converting, right? So is it every KPI has its own thing where you're kind of looking at it and going, okay, because I was writing down, guys, if you're on our comment section, I put it in the comments of just stuff to do. It kind of all, I wasn't expecting it to blurb together, but leads, the new contracts, closings, potential revenue. How are you going back into training? Are you talking to them going, hey guys, let's talk about what potential revenue really looks like? I mean, how does that really work out?
Yeah, so training is very difficult. I don't like to say I'm a very good trainer because I get frustrated a lot. I'm not super patient, and I think my team can attest to that when I'm training. So, but what I will say, what I try to do outside of that is, instead of having long hour conversations, which I'm really good at, pull people aside and have lots of short conversations, right? 7-minute conversation here, 10-minute conversation here, 5-minute conversation here. And in those things, I like to push people to resources, right? So I've developed resources for acquisition. Like, here's our training program.
That's cool.
Watch these videos, right? But a lot of personal training when it's come to people is 7-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation. Hey, what about here? Hey, where are you going at here? What's going on here? Let's talk about blank. And it's small conversations.
Cool.
But then sometimes it's doing it together. But one of the things I like saying, and I've been telling my team recently, is when you come in with a problem, that doesn't mean it's my problem. Like, it's not my problem. Like, I'm the owner and I need to know what you expect of me so I can equip you. But you don't come in with a problem and leave it on my desk and walk out without the problem, right? Especially if it's your responsibility. You walk in with a problem and this is what you're thinking, and you want my advice to think that as well. And then let's come up, and then you go back out with your problem and you solve it. Right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm just accumulating all the problems as an owner. I mean, Gabe, we've talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
You just start accumulating it, and at least for me, I just kind of blow up. I'm just like, guys, what the freaking heck, right? And I explode.
Right.
What do you guys think? I feel like you guys are way better at the training than I am. I mean,
I think we should ask Marty. Marty's like
the
sales, like the rep here. Like, he knows what he's doing. Marty, what's up, dude? Like, how's that work out for you?
I love that. I need to be a little bit more keeping people accountable. I think that's the key to this, to make your KPIs hit. And all of this is accountability on you as the business owner and on anybody that you're working with and your teammates. I think that's probably the toughest thing for us, is just the accountability side of things. And I think it's having those little conversations. I think that's huge, Ronnie. I think those are really big things that I think you might be overlooking that. I really think that's awesome. Instead of, hey, let's meet once a week and talk about, having the little conversations to figure out, hey, what's going on. But I love the other thing. Don't leave this problem on my desk.
Right.
So like, let me kind of dig in that for a second. So, like, a problem that comes up for you guys, Ronnie, what is that? What's a problem like for this last week or last 2 weeks?
Yeah, actually, this morning on my call, I think this is a great example. In our system, over the last week, we have an automatic notification in Podio when someone texts our system, right? When someone texts us on any one of our numbers, it comes in, and then we are supposed to get back to them, right? And so what happens is, that's a notification to let us know that we have a lead. Well, all of a sudden that thing had grown and people hadn't been working. And so it was an issue on our issues list, right? And so that comes in, and I isolated it and brought it up, and it's like, hey man, like what's going on? Like, what does this look like? And then we are coming up with a solution, and the answer that comes back is like, well, hey, I'm texting it through smartphone and it doesn't show up in Podio and it doesn't get. I was like, yeah, but and then it was like, okay, well, do you see every number that comes through or just the number you're using? Well, just the number I'm using. Okay. Well, that means we're not getting to everybody, right? Right. So what can we do to make sure that everyone is done? And then allowing them to kind of come thing and say, okay, now that we've talked about it, and this is where it gets hard, is now that we've talked about it, what's the do? What's the to do on the table? And that's where everyone gets uncomfortable. Everyone likes talking about stuff, but when it comes down to specific action, that's where we get in trouble. Think of it of like, hey, where do you want to go to eat? Oh, I'm good. Nobody wants to make a decision, right? Like, it's like, where do you want to eat? You know what? I want PF Chang's today. Like, a lot of us feel uncomfortable doing that. And so when it comes back is with him is putting it back on his shoulder, say, okay, what are you going to do to every day make sure that this bucket is zeroed out? And you throw it back on them. And then it's like, okay, are you going to do this? Okay, if you need help, reach out to her. Are you cool with that? Yes. Okay, cool. Boom. Sounds good. Let's move on to the next one. And then it's because it's super tense, right? It's like, oh my God, blah, blah. But it's like, dude, it's 5 notifications a day. Like, that's what we're talking about. So it seems, but it's like, and that's on you. Like, you figure it out.
I got something to add to that.
I want to hear what you would say.
And then guys, we're about to wrap up. If you have any questions for Ronnie or for any of us about the KPIs or how we're doing this, that'd be great. One of the things that I have been doing lately, because we have been, and it might have come out of this internal, like we got this.
Yeah.
Is we know our system's working, right? And so I'll go to the hold on, Marty, I just muted you real quick. I don't know. It was you can unmute. What we do is I let my team know going, hey, listen, we have all worked our tail off to make this system amazing. Can everyone see that it's amazing? Yes. And so what I realize is it's kind of like we do with the seller, right? Or anyone. It's like you want to have some common denominators going to begin with, right? And so we just create common denominators. Guys, we have a great system. Yes, we've been working on this we have a Podio mainframe. Yes. Did this break down? Yes. Did we fix it and notify it? Yes. Did this other stuff happen? Guys, this just happened last week for us. One of our things that we were using for social media kind of blocked us out temporarily. And we felt like we were missing a left arm, literally, of our marketing campaign. And I go, you know what? Family meeting right now. We're doing it. To have everyone come in. It was like 2:30. Everyone stop what they're doing. We need to have a conversation because it's also the beginning of the month. And I didn't want to have this drag on the whole month of September. And I'm like, this is what we're doing. So we brought in here and I told everybody, I said, man, guys, I ain't not going to lie. I'm pissed off. I'm really bothered. She did work. He did work. I did work. The team has built all of this stuff and now it's gone. What are we going to do? And I think that sometimes we don't want to be that vulnerable with the team, but the team needs to realize that, hey, look, we're all in this together. And then I was like, what do we have that's going to work right now? Well, we have this. We have these other things here. We have this other stuff we've been working on. We've been working on over here. Let's now just rally together and say, we know this stuff works. Now you have the backing. So we talked to John, listen, you have the backing. Yes. You know that when your calls come in, this is what's happening. Yes. These other things are happening. Yes. Anything that you're concerned about the way you said it? No, I'm not. Good. You need to know that you are backed up 100%. All 50 of those calls that you made to these specific type of sellers, those things are going to be tracked correctly. Once you get one of those in, we're going to go, got it. Boom. Okay. We'll talk to the next person. Right. Next person. You got this other stuff. Right. We're going to have this backed up. Great. So you have this and you gotta be this person that rallies the team back together when things kind of go on the fritz a little, and you got to come back. Right. And so if that's a team meeting every week going, okay, what do we happen? Well, this didn't happen. I didn't really like the way this flowed. I passed it on and it didn't get passed on to, touch too many hands or whatever it is. So I'm ramped up over this, y'all, because, and I say y'all, okay, y'all. All right. Because this just happened to us last week. Right. And so I'm like, wow, we worked so hard. Let's pivot. let's go ahead and move this time over here. What do we have that's working? Okay, here. And how do we know they work? Because we have the KPIs, right? How do we know we work? Because we could track them. And now we're going, okay, we know this works here. And so if there's ever a downside, if there's ever someone who's just having a hard day, a hard time, I'm going, look, we have worked our tail off as a team to make sure this worked. I took your input, we had my input, and we put it all together. And this is what we have, an organization. It's an organism. Now, the organism is a team. You're getting backed up. Now we're expecting you to do your part, right? And it just helps people, realize that because sometimes our callers, I mean, during COVID, can you imagine how many calls like this had to happen that didn't happen during the shutdown where people couldn't see each other? And they're just like, well, I hope Ronnie's doing a good job over there. And I hope so-and-so is actually tracking this stuff. I'm just making my calls, right?
Well, and on top of that, and we won't need to come to the end of the hour, but to add on top of that, the team, if you have a team, if it's not just you, if you have a team, to those who are, if you don't address issue, if I, when an issue comes up, don't address it, everybody sees it, right? And then you become known as the leader who avoids the issue. And you lose credibility. They lose their ability to believe that you're going to take them to the next level. And what more do we have as a small business but people's belief in us and our system, right? They have to believe that they are on the right train, that they're going to accomplish their personal goals, that your vision is big enough to accommodate what they want to do, and that you're the person who's going to pull the weight and not avoid stuff. Because they know, hey, if that goes wrong, Ronnie's going to dig in. If I do something, Ronnie's going to dig in. If that, and it's not just Ronnie, then it comes to a point where Ronnie has to step away. They dig into each other. Hey man, you need to pull that out. I need blank, blank, and blank. Like, come on, man, we need this. We don't want to get yelled at, right? It's not just yelled at, but you guys get what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah, totally.
Everyone wants to pull together, and I love that. So let's circle the room, and then I'll finish us off. Marty, key takeaways from today, final thoughts, things you want to leave our audience with.
Yeah, I think today was, we probably needs to be rewind at least a couple of times for people to hear this again. I love this. I love the one thing that I think, even when you're a top level guy, big business, or even a small guy just starting out, the KPIs don't have to be crazy.
That's good.
They can be simple, and actually they should stay simple. You can dig into them, but get it started first and work up from there, but it doesn't have to be crazy. I love that.
It's good. Gabe.
To add to that, I mean, I there's nothing to add to that. I think that was awesome. Okay. Because that's something that I overthink sometimes. I love the 80-20. Right? Where you're saying, hey, you know what? If I want to try something new, I'm going to spend 20% of my resources towards something new that I've heard works. I want to test it out, my research and development side, but you're not jumping all in where 80% of your business is into that. And then you're leaving the thing that's really the cash cow producing for you. So that was my big takeaway that I got from Ronnie. So thanks a lot, dude. That was good.
Absolutely. I think my final thought is, after everything, when it comes down to the numbers, be willing to ask yourself and your team, is it on track or is it not on track? And instead of all these stories and all this stuff and why, just be honest. You know what? It's not on track. You know what? We are on track. Good freaking job. You know what? It's not on track. Okay, let's dig into why. What do you expect of me? This is what I expect of you. And just be willing to be that black and white. Is it on track? Is it not on track? And jumping forward. So, all right, guys, that is all the time that we have for today. This has been super exciting. I hope this has been super helpful. There's been a lot that's been talked about in this time about KPIs, how to manage teams, common myths, common mistakes, all that type of stuff. Feel free to go back, ask questions in the chat. But also, we come to you guys every Tuesday at 12 Eastern time. We're here every Tuesday. If you guys have things you want to talk about or whatever, like the page, drop in a comment. We want to hit, and we want you guys to get out of this what you're looking for as you're spending your valuable time with us. So until next time, again, I was your host today, Ronald Walker. We have Gabe, we have Marty. Guys, go out and crush the week.
See ya. Peace.
This has been another episode of Real Estate Power Play, guiding real estate entrepreneurs to a brighter future. If you liked what you heard, consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcast or follow us on YouTube at Real Estate Power Play.